So again, thank you for calling in. I look forward to hearing your questions and comments, so please type those in as you think of them. I'll give a quick overview of the program. It sounds like some people are not familiar with the program, so I will do some background and then tell you what we've learned in the last year during our first year of implementation, kind of give you an overview of what is new about the program and what we're planning in the upcoming year, and then tell you what's happened with the actual scoring tool, because we have made some changes and it was just released in December, our most recent version of that tool. Okay, so going to slide 5. So as you can see, the Home Energy Score it's meant to be a simple, basic piece of information that you can give to a homeowner or a home buyer. It tells the consumer how the home is scoring today. In this case, the home's current score is a 5, and what it could score with improvements. So cost-effective improvements like sealing your ducts or putting more attic insulation in, or even replacing some piece of equipment. What could be improved in terms of efficiency and how much they could save with those improvements. It's meant to be sort of like a miles per gallon MPG rating for homes. So, when you go buy a car, you get a sense of, with the sticker, it'll tell you, this car is going to get 30 miles a gallon. This one will get 45. This one will get 17. And then obviously that's not going to be the only thing that you pay attention to when you're buying a car, and we don't expect this will be the only thing that people pay attention to when they're buying a home. Obviously, location and schools and what kind of size and all that will determine what kind of home you're going to buy. But we do think this is useful information that can help inform the decision, and it can also help if the home buyer wants to make improvements in the first year of home ownership or beyond. It can give them a sense of what would be cost effective to do and what could save them money and save energy. It's a low-cost service, and that was one of the reasons we put it together. It was meant to be something that you could do instead of a full home energy audit. Not that those are not useful, they are, but this is meant to be a quicker assessment that somebody trained can do in an hour if they're not doing anything else in the home, or if they're doing some other type of assessment or collecting information. It shouldn't take more than about 15 minutes to collect the information and score the home. It does not include any diagnostics, and it's not intended to replace a full energy audit. Obviously, that will give you much more detailed information. We've done a lot of analysis over the last 3 years, and we're very pleased with where the scoring tool and system is today. But we continue to, be improving the tool and the program, and I'll talk a little bit about the research that we have underway right now to do that. Okay, slide 6. So this is the first piece of information that a homeowner or home buyer would get. As I said, it just gives you some basic information, the address, how much square footage it has in terms of condition square footage, when it was built, and then again, how the home scores today and how it could score with improvements. It also gives some information on, so you can go back and find this information. It gives you some record information in terms of when it was done and what the score ID is and who did it. Slide 7 is just showing you, basically you get home facts, which are, it's a list of the data that was used by the home assessor when they went through the home and collected information about your roof, your foundation, your heating, cooling, etc. All the information that they put into the tool, it's meant to be just a basic record for the homeowner in case they would like to go back and see what was included. It also includes the information that the tool outputs in terms of estimates of total energy use, as well as estimate of just what would be used by the heating, cooling, and hot water components of the home, which is what we consider the asset energy use. And it also breaks that down into the different fuel types used by that home, whether it's heating, whether it's electricity or natural gas or oil, etc. On slide 8, you'll see some generic, or I should say, some standard kinds of recommendations you might get out of the scoring tool. And they are broken out into what you can do now, like, sealing your ducts and putting in more insulation, and then what you can do later when you're ready to replace equipment, like your heating system, your cooling system, your water heater. If you, as a program manager or an assessor, choose to, you don't need to show the homeowner these recommendations, but we do ask that you provide some recommendations. So if you feel that as an assessor you have a better sense of what needs to happen in the house, you can provide your own recommendations in place of these. And we recognize that this is a national tool. As good as it is, it's not going to be probably as specific in terms of what might make sense for an individual house. So we certainly have that flexibility. On the other hand, if you don't have the resources or the time to come up with your own recommendations, we think the tool does a pretty good job of developing recommendations for the home. The scoring tool is pretty easy to use. Lots of people have used it. I think we have like 180 plus assessors at this point. We've made improvements. We have, tips. So under each section of the scoring tool, you can go in and there's a question mark, and you can click on that, and it can give you additional information in case you've forgotten how it is that we're requesting, what specific information we're requesting for in that area of data. And you can use the scoring tool to, as I said, if you're using your own recommendations, you can use it to rescore the home with those recommendations. So as you saw on the first page, it showed that that home was getting a 5, and it could get to a 7. Perhaps with your recommendations, it could get an 8 or a 6 or whatever. And you can do that and then develop the score based on that information. Slide 10 is just a quick overview of how we kind of structure the program, how we've structured it to date. So basically, DOE enters into partnerships with utilities, state and local governments, nonprofit organizations, and then those organizations oversee what we call qualified assessors. These assessors go into individual homes, collect the data, score the home, and then provide that information to the homeowner. The requirements for the program listed on slide 7 are fairly not very onerous, I should say. There is an annual commitment of scoring at least 200 homes, and then given that we're very interested in making sure that these are consistently done, we do require that 5% of homes are rescored for the purpose of quality assurance. We provide free testing and training online, but we do ask that the partners administer those tests to the assessors, provide a place for that to happen, and we do provide monthly webinars where we encourage partners to call in and share information about what's going well or not well in their program. But to join, you basically just sign a partner agreement, then we have some calls with you where we figure out how it is you're planning to implement your program, and then you can get started. We do provide assistance as much as we can to our partners. Obviously, we're not doing a lot of one-on-one assistance with assessors, but we do try to help partners get started, and we provide marketing materials that you're welcome to use or not use as you see fit, whether it's things to put on your web banners on your website, or marketing materials that you can use for your assessors or to give directly to homeowners. In just this past December, when we released the latest version of the scoring tool, we also released the new version of what's called an API, which is an application programming interface. The reason we did this is that, and this has been around since the beginning of the program as well, it basically allows software vendors and others to use the scoring tool without actually having their users go directly into the website that we have for the scoring tool. I didn't say that very clearly, but basically what it is one software tool can speak to our scoring tool kind of behind the scenes and transfer the data and then generate the score. So you're still using our algorithms and our tool to generate a score, but you don't actually have to go into our scoring tool directly. So if, for instance, you have a program where you have a specific auditing software that you're using, the score can be generated alongside of that without creating a lot of additional work. And we do have a bunch of partners who are using the API. Energy Savvy has been using it with some of our partners. Minnesota CEE, the Center for Energy Environment, developed a handheld app. United Illuminating utility in Connecticut actually developed their own handheld app for their own program. I think it's called Home Energy Solutions, but it also generates the score at the same time. So there's a lot of different ways that you can flexibly integrate the scoring and the score into your programs, and that's kind of what we're aiming for. We're trying to make this as flexible and as easy as possible while consistent across the country. Slide 14 just shows you some of the pictures of the nice tool that Minnesota CEE developed. So, it can be used on a tablet, and it's nicer looking than the one that we have. But obviously, if you're not using a different software tool, you certainly can go directly into our scoring tool and use it directly. Okay, with that, I'm going to pass it back to Courtney.
Okay, so we are going to go ahead and launch our second poll. Here we go. Okay, and we are interested in what type of industry organization do you represent? So we want to know who is on the line today. We've asked utility, government, nonprofit, realtor, appraiser, and other. And we apologize, we could only have 5 options here, so we know there are probably a lot of folks on the line that fit into a different category. And they're trickling in, that's great. Okay, so about 90% of the people on the phone have responded, so I will go ahead and close the poll, and let's take a look. Okay, so as you can see, we have about 15% of the people on the line represent a utility. About, 23% of folks on the line represent a government organization, 22% represent nonprofit, 2% represent a realtor and or appraiser, and 37% represent other organizations. All right.
Great. So it sounds like we have a good mix of folks. Great, thank you. So that's terrific, and that's kind of representative of the kind of folks that we work with day to day. I mean, I think we have a good mix of state and local governments, as well as industry partners, utilities, et cetera. And we haven't ventured too far into the real estate mode and area, but that is something that we obviously see as an important area for us to develop in the future. So on slide 17, you see a map of our partners around the country, and really our success in the last year can be attributed to their diligence and commitment to making sure this is a good program and that it works well. And so we've learned a tremendous amount from many of our partners who've kind of told us what's working well, what hasn't worked well, and we've done a lot to try to address any concerns they've had. On slide 18, you'll see that we've had about 30 partners join to date. I think, at least on my slide, I can't see what's up there, but there's a typo. Hopefully it says 8,500 plus homes. It's not 85,000. So more than 8,500 homes have been scored since summer of 2012. We have a little close to 200 qualified assessors. And one thing we're very excited about is working with a number of states to try to integrate this into statewide programs. So Connecticut, Vermont, Missouri, and other states have all been working towards that, and we're excited to continue to work with them to make sure it works well there, and then also to work with others. I know others are interested. I know Oregon's in the process of figuring out what makes sense for them. Florida has had some recent changes, and there's other places as well that are considering how to create a system that can consistently provide information to homeowners at a reasonable cost. Recently, BPI, the Building Performance Institute, approved our training, so you can receive 2 CEU credits if you're a BPI individual, affiliated individual, and you take our training, then you do get those credits, which I think is a great benefit. And as I said, We've also continued to do our outreach, our account management support to our partners. We added a partner portal so the partners can get information directly from our website. And soon, I don't think it's available yet as a feature, the partners will be able to download any information that's done on houses in their area. So if they have 20 assessors that they're managing, they can collect all the data that's been collected and entered in by those assessors on homes in their area. And I think a lot of our partners find that to be useful. We've made significant improvements to the scoring tool and to our methodology for scoring, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. So what we learned kind of most fundamentally was that we needed to make some changes to the scale, not to the fact that it's 10 points. I think people like that, it's easy to understand, and that was something we got a lot of positive feedback on. But the problem was that, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this, but basically what was happening was we were scoring homes on how much energy a home is expected to use under standard conditions. And that was total energy for the home, including its base load. But the recommendations we provide are all focused on the home's asset components, so its envelope and its heating, cooling, and hot water, not on its plug load. And so what was happening was that people were kind of getting stymied by that. They were kind of getting held down by the base load component of the energy use and not able to move up the scale. So what we did was, since we're only providing recommendations on how to improve the asset components, the home is now just scored on what we call asset energy use. And again, that's heating, cooling, and hot water loads. What's happened by doing this is really it allows homes to more easily move up the scale with improvements. The other thing that was happening is that larger homes, particularly because they had a large base load, because plug load was associated with the size of the home, they in particular were doing very poorly. And although homes that are larger are still going to be using more energy than smaller homes, the fact that we've taken the plug load out has allowed there to be less of a differentiation between large homes and small homes. While there's still some, large homes can actually improve their scores now, as opposed to previously where many of them were sort of stuck in the lower range and not able to move up. We also learned that from some of our smaller partners in particular, our current requirements for assessors are that they have to be either BPI certified as building analysts or certified as HERS raters. And that has been a bit of a barrier for some of our, particularly our smaller partners, as I said, who don't have too many people on staff or even anyone on staff who has that qualification. So what we're looking at and what I will discuss later is ways that we can perhaps find other appropriate requirements, but not requirements that are going to be limiting such that, requiring things that you don't necessarily need to know in order to score a home effectively. As I said previously, we found out that a number of states are looking for flexible, easy rating methods and are seriously considering or are adopting Home Energy Score. And in particular, I think what's been effective about it is that we try to allow as much customization as possible. And so we're really working towards making it even easier to customize the information. We still want it to be consistent so that homes are consistently scored using the scale and that people are given the actual score. But if you choose to give the homeowner different information that, we haven't seen as essential, but you do, then we certainly allow that, and we certainly allow you to prioritize how you provide that information. And I mentioned briefly that partners are able to download the data that their assessors collect in the field. And what we've learned is that, not only is the score effective in helping to motivate homeowners and helping sell programs, but it turns out as a sort of additional benefit, having this data easily accessible and in an easy format for analysis is very helpful to utilities and to others, because it's just a simple way that you can collect information about the housing stock in your area and track that and determine, where you want to go with incentive programs or other types of ways that you might want to target your programs. Okay, so next I'm going to move on to more recent developments. So moving to slide 21. As I said, we did find that having the current requirements for assessors was a bit limiting, and we still have those requirements. Right now you're required to have certification, as I mentioned, but you're also required to pass a two-part exam that we offer online for free. What we decided to do was kind of beef up the training that we provide. So we were working with a company called Interplay to develop a 3D simulation tool. And it's been developed now, and we're in the process of testing it. Basically what it is you can go log on and, or just access the tool on the web. You can basically go through 3 different homes, and then there's endless permutations of these homes where, you see different features of heating and cooling and hot water and insulation and all that. And so all the things that we care about in terms of what are the data points that are measured, that's really what the simulation tool focuses on, and focuses on training the individual who's going through it. Right now what we're doing is testing that by actually having volunteers go through it, in addition to just doing user testing with it. We're actually taking folks that have certification as a BPI or BPI building analyst and HERS raters, having them go through it, as well as folks who don't have that background but might be home inspectors or might be in the HVAC industry, having them go through it. There's a test associated with it. Once those folks go through, pass the test, those who do pass the test, we're then taking them into some specific homes where they go through, they score them, and what we're going to be doing to sort of validate whether or not, or to assess whether or not this new training tool is effective in truly training folks to be ready for scoring homes. We're looking at how the folks that have certification versus the folks who don't have certification do in terms of actually scoring real homes. So hopefully I didn't make that too complicated. But basically, the upshot of that is that we're trying to find alternatives to the current certification levels that we currently require, and sort of jointly using this training tool and testing tool in conjunction perhaps with other certification or other training to basically reduce the certification level and requirements for assessors. We're certainly not going to make it so simple that just anybody can go through a home, and therefore you don't really have a lot of credibility in terms of what's being provided, but we did recognize that the current requirements were perhaps more than were needed in order to score a home effectively. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it back to Courtney, who I think is going to show a quick demo of the 3D
Welcome
tool.
to the Home Energy Score training simulation. This web-based immersive 3D training tool has been designed to quickly get you up to speed on how to accurately calculate a home energy score. It will also help prepare you for both the written and simulation exams required to become a qualified home energy score assessor. The 3D training is lifelike and presents a wide variety of home scenarios, ranging from the simple to the complex. You will learn how to identify different heating and air conditioning systems, assess floor and window area coverage, measure ceiling heights, and calculate insulation levels within the home. Throughout the simulation, there are tools and practical tips to help you accurately record the home's energy data. Importantly, the data entry form replicates the actual home energy score tool. Practice in the simulation will translate well into the real world. Once you have completed the simulation, you will receive an easy-to-understand feedback report, so you can monitor your progress and improve your performance. With successful completion of the Home Energy Score training simulation, you'll be well on your way to becoming a qualified home energy assessor.
Great. Thanks very much. So that gives you a quick, better introduction to the tool than I gave you. But there's actually obviously much more to it, and we look forward to using it and launching that piece of the program probably in April. So moving to slide 23, as I said earlier, we're very much dedicated to making sure that this program is effective and that we continue to improve it, with lessons learned from our partners and with research that we're doing. Recently, we asked the Shelton Group to conduct some focus groups for us in Atlanta, and we learned some additional, information from that. Basically, we were trying to gauge what about the information we're providing with the Home Energy Score is most effective, what's clear, what's not clear, and what's most likely to really affect change. Obviously, as I said previously, what we're really aiming the program at is getting, whether it's homeowners or home buyers, either one, to invest in improvements, and for those improvements then to pay off when you're actually selling the house. So what we found was that, and we're moving away from the 10-year savings number right now. It shows 10-year savings on the first page. And folks actually would like to have seen annual savings, although the reason we picked 10 was that, obviously the math is pretty simple to do. They still preferred just seeing an annual number. So we're moving back to showing just the annual number. It was something we actually started the program with. We found out from the focus groups that something we'd actually heard also from others is that the technical terms on the home facts are confusing, and although many homeowners don't need to know or want to know all the details, others might. So we need to provide either a glossary of terms or some more clarity to the home facts. And while we were trying to make it as short as possible, clearly we need to make it clear as well. We also found out that from these focus groups that people would really like to have more of an action list in terms of not just recommendations of what they can do to improve the home, but sort of the next steps as to who they should contract with and who they should call for estimates for those improvements. And obviously this is not something that DOE is going to get involved in, but I think utilities and nonprofits, obviously have a big role to play here and can do more to kind of supplement the information that the Home Energy Score is providing. They also wanted to see cost estimates for the improvements, and so how much you're going to save, but how much it would cost to get to those savings. It's funny because originally we did include payback information, which obviously implied a cost, and the reason we took that out was that a lot of contractors didn't want us to presume we knew what they were going to charge in specific locations for different kinds of improvements. So we took that information out. We still use cost information to help us determine which improvements are cost effective. We have a 10-year payback cutoff for our first level improvements, the ones that are not the replacement improvements but the others. But since they do want to see this kind of information, obviously that's something that I think utilities and contractors and nonprofits and state and local governments will be much more likely to be able to provide that kind of information at the local level. Although some folks were not, big government in favor of government, they seem to like having the DOE seal there, having it lent some credibility to the information that was being provided, so that was good to hear. And many focus on the fact that they really wanted to see this at point of sale and that they'd like it added to home inspection reports, which is something that we certainly thought, but it was good to have that reinforced and confirmed. Okay, so moving to slide 24. We're still undertaking other kinds of analysis in this upcoming year to make sure that the program is effective and that we can make it as effective as possible. And I should say we're acting on many of the recommendations that we heard out of the focus groups, things that we thought would be more generally would generally resonate with folks. So we're making some of those improvements, and I didn't go into all of those details. But in terms of the evaluation study, we're working with Energy Savvy, who supplies software to many of our partners. And what we're doing with them is basically doing a blind study where a random sample of folks are selected to receive the Home Energy Score, and then a random set are are not going to receive the home energy score. Otherwise, they'll be treated similarly or equally. So if I think if the utility is providing, or the program administrator is providing a home energy audit, they will get that information, and then half of the folks will also get the home energy score, half of them will not. And so then they will be tracked to see if there's a difference in terms of who makes improvements and what the extent of the improvements are. So if you see deeper retrofits with one group versus the other, and whether or not there's a higher conversion rate, hopefully with those who receive the home energy score, we want to know that. We're also doing a study shown on slide 25. We're doing some recognition studies. We're working with David Rand at Yale and other experts in the field to basically look at, are there other ways that we can kind of beef up the value of getting a home energy score. So for instance, if you couple it with some type of recognition, whether it's just sending somebody a mug, as is shown here, or giving them a Facebook widget or something that would basically make their investment visible to others, does that actually make a difference? And so we're going to be testing that, I believe, with New Jersey Natural Gas to see if there's a difference in terms of uptake rates by those who are recognized versus those who don't have that featured in their program. Okay, I'm going to turn it back to Courtney.
Okay, great. So here is our third and final poll of the day. And it says, why are you interested in the home energy score? So we know all of you have some interest. You're on the webinar today. But here's maybe some different avenues you could pursue. So your organization is interested in becoming a partner. You or your organization is interested in becoming a qualified assessor. You're interested in the application programming interface, the API. You're interested in the 3D simulation training and testing software, the video that we showed, or perhaps some other reason. So we will let the responses roll in. Okay, so we have about 80% of the people on the webinar have responded, so I will close out the poll and I will share it. So as you can see, 25% of the people on the line are from an organization that are interested in joining. So that's exciting to hear. We will certainly share some information with you on how you can join. About 29% are interested in becoming a qualified assessor. Again, we can also share some information on how you get in touch with different partner organizations who can help onboard you as a qualified assessor. 27% of people are interested in the API. 25% are interested in the 3D software, and 56% of people are on for some other reason. So we have our contact information at the end of the webinar, but we would love to hear from you and provide any material that may be helpful to pursue your relationship sort of with the home energy score. But I will hand it back to Joan.
Okay, thanks. So actually, since I don't have this on here, but since there are a number of folks who are interested in becoming qualified assessors, I should say that one thing we are trying to move towards in the future is, although I showed the implementation model that we're using right now where we have individual partners overseeing assessors, we know that there are a number of folks out in the field who would like to offer the score as part of their work, but are not in a place where it's currently being used by a partner. And so what we're thinking about doing is looking to a model where we have some kind of other quality assurance providers that the assessors would, either pay into or somehow, obviously it wouldn't be something that DOE runs, but some way that their work could be assessed and have quality assurance performed on it. So they're basically kind of playing the role of a partner without it being exactly a partner. So we want to make sure that there's quality assurance, and DOE obviously is not in a place where we can go and assess, 5% of the homes that are being assessed, we can't rescore those. But if we can find entities that can do that responsibly, then that's something we'd like to move towards so that it can be provided in a wider range. a wider way. Okay, so I think I have 4 more slides, and I want to make sure there's time for questions. So quickly, we made a lot of improvements to the scoring tool. I already talked about the fact that we think there's a significant improvement in terms of your ability to move up the scale. We moved from 250 weather stations to 1,000 weather stations, which just means that it's more, it's taking into account your local weather more effectively. And we've made other very specific things like, there's great ability to characterize different kinds of ducts. If you have more than one system, you can more simply score townhomes if that's what you're scoring in your area. We've added ground source heat pumps and heat pump water heaters as types of systems that you can include. And now you can kind of keep track of what type of assessment you're providing. So if it's a final report or if it's a quality assurance report or a test, all of that is shown on the actual score. Slide 29 are some pretty graphs, basically, showing how the 8,000 homes that we scored to date, or that were scored by our partners to date, if you basically plot those in terms of how they scored, the blue on the top left shows how they scored previously and how they score now, given the new system. I think what's most important here is showing that there is an ability to move up, which you can see there's kind of a shift more to the higher numbers of the 2014 upgrade. And in terms of the potential jump, although there's still going to be some homes that are not able to move very much, we think there's definitely going to be an improved ability to do so. And you can see that there's many more homes that can even get up to 9 points of jumping, which is obviously not going to be very common, but you will be seeing homes that are able to jump 4 or 5 points, although many will still, jump 3, depending on where they're starting, or 2. Okay, so lastly, we think it's a great time to become a partner, so I'm very encouraged and excited to have so many of you on the phone who are interested in learning more about doing that. It's easier to do so. We think that there's improvements now to the API in terms of just making it easier for software developers to integrate it into their software. We're doing a lot, as I said, to work with experts to target our messaging more effectively and making sure that all of you can benefit from that. And I've already talked about the simulation training and testing, and we will continue, as I said, to be dedicated to making improvements in the tool, improvements in the program, and allowing greater customization. I'm going to make a quick pitch on the next slide for our commercial building energy asset score. If you're interested in doing work on the commercial side, or do so, we can score all types of buildings, schools, retail, office, etc. It's very similar in a lot of ways to the home energy score in that it's an asset score. It's not as far along. It's just been pilot tested for the second time. But if you're interested, please let us know. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Courtney to read out some questions that hopefully we received.
Great. So we have a lot of questions here, Joan. We'll definitely get through as many as we can in the next 15 minutes. If for some reason we cannot get to your question today, we're happy to reach out to you. Also, please feel free to email us, which we can share that email address on the next screen. There you are. Okay, so here we go. The first one is the software able to import HPXML test-in data at this time?
No, but it will be brought to HPXML standards and use of that standard by the end of this year.
Great. Does the home energy score require a blower door test to be conducted?
It does not. You can include a CFM 50 number if you do a blower door test, but you're not required to do so, and that's based on sensitivity analysis that we did in the first year of testing in 2011.
Does the home energy score include installed PV solar?
It does not, but we are planning to include PV in the next few months. Hopefully, I don't want to promise before a year, but hopefully within 6 months. But certainly with the next version of the scoring tool, and we will do updates to the scoring tool every year.
Okay. How is the carbon footprint estimated?
good question. I haven't thought about that in a while. It's basically estimated in terms of how much energy is the home using today or predicted to use today versus how much would it use with the improvements, and then it's seen as a percentage reduction. And that's, I believe it, although I've forgotten. Glenn, can you help me out here?
Yeah, we're using the regional e-grid data for determining the carbon amounts, and then using the energy calculations and fuel mix to determine the footprint.
Thank you.
Okay. Can only qualified assessors use the scoring tool, or are homeowners able to use it as well?
You have to have an assessor ID and a password to get into the scoring tool, so the answer is only qualified assessors can score homes. If a homeowner wants to find out what they can do in their home independent of that, they can use something called Home Energy Saver. It's run on the same tool, but it does not, or the same software or energy model, I should say, but it does not score the home. It will provide lots of information depending on how much information the homeowner chooses to put into that tool.
Okay. Joan, I think you've answered this question in part, but this one's a little bit more specific. So has any thought been given to expanding the assessor qualification beyond BPI and ResNet? And this person is specifically interested in the ICC residential energy inspectors.
I'm not specific. I don't think I know enough about that specific certification or professional, affiliation. But yes, we are definitely looking at expanding to other types of qualified users, including home inspectors.
Is geographic region considered in the assessment?
The assessment basically, well, you still have to collect all the same data points, regardless of where you are in the country. The energy model is run based on, estimating what the loads would be in that specific location. So it takes your zip code, it associates that zip code with your closest weather station, and then the energy model uses that weather data to predict how much energy you would be using. I hope that answers people's questions.
Okay. Somebody has a question about us excluding the base load, and they said, doesn't base load of plug and pipe loads exclude about 30% or so of the home energy use?
I think that's about right. You still get an estimate of how much. So on the home facts page, it'll tell you how much energy we predict that home will use under standard use conditions. So the standard use conditions are, setting your thermostat at a certain level, having showers of a certain length, etc. But to score the home, we use what we call the asset energy use, which is just that portion that excludes the plug load. It's the portion associated with heating, cooling, and hot water. And the reason that we exclude plug load is that a lot of that is TVs and lights that might not convey with the home. So we only focus on those pieces of equipment and the conditions of the home that would convey at point of sale. And we've defined that to be heating, cooling, hot water, and envelope.
And that would also explain why lighting load isn't included. Somebody specifically asked about lighting load as well.
Yeah. We estimate how much a home is likely to use, but we do not collect information about its specific lighting. On the commercial building, we do obviously include lighting because it's, it's more of a fixed asset. With homes, it's harder to do because some people have lamps, some people have, recessed lighting, and it's hard to then put it all on an apples-to-apples basis.
When we talk about, Joan, small homes versus large homes, what's the cutoff? So what is considered a large home?
We don't, okay, so we asked the assessor to provide square footage in terms of how much of the home has how much conditioned square footage there is in the home. Based on that, we then calculate what the heating, cooling, hot water loads would be, based on all the other data that was provided about the systems. We don't do any kinds of cutoffs in terms of square footage. So the scale is not based on your square footage. It's based on how much energy we predict that that home will use based on the conditions of that home and where it's located, et cetera. I'm not sure I'm answering this correctly, but what we found was that by taking base load out, you can, again, a larger home will probably, if everything else is equal, a smaller home is going to use less energy than a larger home. So the smaller home will score a little bit higher. But that's not to say that a large home couldn't score well on the scale. It certainly could. It just, has to be more efficient, and it can move up. It may not be able to score a 10 if it's, a 5,000 square foot home, or maybe even a 3,000 square foot home. It really depends. But that's also why we're, considering how to factor in PV. So a larger home, if they have PV, might in the end be able to offset the fact that it's large with, putting PV on the roof. We haven't determined how that will factor into the scale yet.
Okay. Have we considered a partnership with a web-based real estate company, such as Zillow, to display the rating for homes?
We have. I talked to them early on, and I think that before even considering, including information, they have to have like 1 million houses that, feature that information. So we're not, we're not close yet. But it could be that in certain regions it would make sense to have them do that as the score becomes more popular. And we certainly are, working with the folks that determine how information is set on the MLS. There's 850 different MLSs around the country, and each one is, run, I think, independently by their own MLS board. They have to determine what information is shared, but we're creating the information in a way that it could be easily shared with MLS organizations if they choose to do so.
Is it possible for folks who are interested in testing the scoring tool to have access to it?
Yes, we will provide you with access to either the test site, which will, basically do everything that the other site does. It's just that it will say preliminary or sample on the score report. But you can let us know if you want to get access to the tool, and we can work with you to do that.
Great. On average, how much does the Home Energy Score cost homeowners?
It's really market driven, and so our partners are, free to choose however much or little they would like to do in their area. I think many people are offering it as an add-on to an audit, so they may not be charging additional, but from what we've heard is that people are likely to charge somewhere between $50 and $100 for the score.
Is the Home Energy Score an alternative to Home Performance with Energy Star for homeowners? How are the two marketed together or separately?
Well, we obviously have both programs managed at DOE, and so we do work together. Home Performance has been going through its own development and iterations of that program. I know they're looking into what types of recognition make sense, and there are home performance programs that offer certificates. It hasn't been formally integrated, but certainly many of our partners are integrating it into their home performance programs. It's basically an add-on feature that you can use. It doesn't take the place of home performance because it's really a rating and scoring system. It's not a system for actually carrying out the improvements, which is really what home performance is.
What is the average or median score before and score after with improvements?
I don't know if I have that information off the top of my head. I don't actually, in terms of the 8,000 homes that have been scored, but we could find that out. the median home for the country is likely to be a 5 because we did set the scale in a way that a 5 is generally going to be associated with sort of the average home.
Okay, so if this is an
and
asset...
If you're in the, one more thing I want to say about
go
that.
ahead, Joan.
If you're in the lower range of the scoring scale, it will be easier to move up. So if you're scoring a 1 or 2, you know, hopefully you'll be able to get to a 5, 6, 7. If you're scoring a 7, obviously to begin with, you're not going to be able to move up as much, and maybe you'll move to an 8 or 9. So if you're starting at a worse end of the scale, you'll have more opportunity for jumping a larger number of jumps, if that makes sense. Go ahead, sorry, Courtney.
Okay, how is the home energy score different from REM rate?
Well, we have analysis that we've done. REM rate is one of the scoring systems that's used for HERS, or is accepted by HERS to produce a HERS rating. Home energy score and HERS are completely different kinds of rating scales. HERS is typically used on new homes. Home energy score has been used basically on existing homes, and that's what it was created to do. We do test the efficacy of the home energy scoring tool and its ability to predict energy use against actual homes with actual utility bills, and we tested REM rate as well, and the home energy scoring tool does at least as well as REM rate. In terms
Joan,
of,
if I could throw,
go ahead.
If I can throw one other thing in there, the primary difference between home energy score and a rating, whether it be by REM rate or some other software, is that the ResNet standard compares the existing house against a fictitious house that's built to code, whereas home energy score takes the energy use and compares that across a range of energy use for that weather station. So it's a comparison against an absolute scale, whereas a rating is against a code home of similar design.
Yeah, thank you for saying that.
Okay. So we have time for probably just a couple more questions here. But again, I will say, if we did not get to your question today, please feel free to reach out to us. Our website or our email address is on the screen. So it's homeenergyscore@ee.doe.gov, and we will gladly answer it there. But again, we have another minute or two. So, Joan, will a home that earns a score of a 7 today be as efficient as a home that earns the same score 10 years from now? Are those two homes?
Probably not, because the scoring tool will, although we don't plan to change the values of the scale every year, certainly we do not expect to do that. Maybe in 10 years we would, because we do need to reflect what's going on in the housing stock. And so, you know, as housing stock becomes more efficient, it could be that the 10 becomes more stringent. But I don't think it's going to change that much, to be honest with you, because there's so much room for improvement. I don't think it's going to happen that quickly. But it could potentially change in 10 years.
And then if
you can automatically rescore the home based on the latest version of the scoring tool, though, I should say. Go ahead, sorry.
Okay, great. That was actually the follow-up to that. So.
Okay.
How do, and I don't know if you know this, Joan, but how do local governments balance current workload and staffing with limited funding? So if someone's interested in joining us as a partner, what should they expect in terms of time and resources?
I think it's probably good for that organization to get in touch with us and we can talk through it. I don't know a quick answer to that one, I'm sorry.
With that, Joan, I think being conscious of 1 o'clock, do you have any final words for the crowd?
I don't, but I really appreciate people taking the time to join us. And please let us know if you want us to follow up with other additional webinars on specific topics or another opportunity to ask questions. We're happy to do that. I know we got cut off here in terms of questions. I apologize for that.
Okay, great. Well, again, thank you very much for joining today. We had a great turnout, fantastic participation. Please feel free to reach out to us at homeenergyscore@ee.doe.gov, and we are more than happy to email you back or set up an additional follow-up call. So with that, we'll go ahead and sign off and have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.